Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan and Espis. Ukraine War news update, the first part thereof for the 15th of November 2024. And we start, as always, with the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course, and you can find them in the description to the video below. We have very high numbers, but not as high as we have seen over the last couple of days. That were record-breaking numbers across a number of categories. 1,520 is still phenomenally high. 11 tanks is huge. Well, contextually huge. It's above average, but not as huge as the last couple of days where we are seeing 24 tanks taken out. 21 armoured personnel vehicles, fairly high, just a tad above the daily average, and 20 artillery systems there or thereabouts. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, that would be good for the Ukrainians. 77 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 16 pieces of special equipment, so that's very high there. 77 vehicles and fuel tanks, likewise pretty impressive numbers. So that's going to hurt the Russians. Although Andrew Pepetra and his team don't have a list out again today because they've been inundated with videos, the record numbers of videos they've been having to look at to geolocate, to put on a map, to tot up their numbers. He did a live stream. He just wanted a bit of a break, did a live stream. It was really interesting to listen to what him and some of his team had to say. The Russians really are losing phenomenal amounts of equipment and personnel, particularly in Kursk. They are attacking in a number of places, and they had a massive attack a couple of days ago in Chaziv Yar. Huge attack there after being somewhat quiet of late. Likewise in Toretsk, a huge attack there. They're obviously attacking in Kupiansk, right down that northeastern front line, and then of course all over Pokrovsk and down to the Velika Novosilka area. So Zaporizhia is looking like it's on the cards as well. So the Russians are attacking everywhere with massive numbers, or given the context of where we are in the war, massive numbers. And they are taking huge casualties. So it is this tension again that we just keep seeing, that yep, the Russians are taking territory and the Ukrainians are somewhat crumbling. But at the same time, the Ukrainians are making the Russians pay for each square kilometre. And it really is the case that they are losing huge amounts. These guys look at the videos. They are saying, yep, we're seeing, and they lost all this stuff there. They lost all that stuff there. Saying it's just incredible. I don't know how much longer they can keep going on with this, because the losses are phenomenal. And they were saying, Andrew was saying that some analysts he's been looking at are thinking that there could be days when they will be losing sort of 2,000 a day. That is going to be happening because they're just attacking everywhere, and that's going to be possibly fairly regular. The activities taking place up in Kursk are incredibly expensive, but the Ukrainians are under huge amounts of pressure, and they will be, it's not looking good for the Ukrainians. So real critical time at the moment. Okay, so let's have a look at some other sources. Special Kherson Cat here says, as the Russians say on this video, these here that you can see on the video are apparently mass graves near Snizhne in the Donetsk region, in which there are about apparently 6,000 Russian soldiers buried who were supposedly missing in action. As the person here says, here they are, mass graves, and there's effing mountains of graves like these. Just absolutely incredible. Here they are burying our 200, our killed, those who are missing, scare quotes, missing. So it is difficult for the Russians. There's no doubt about that. But they, when you're able to pull on North Korean resources, it somewhat mitigates that. Okay, a Russian serviceman in the Kursk region talks about losing 2/3 of his personnel in his own minefields at night. Okay, so let's read through this. Remember, Google Translate, so as I read it out, it might be a bit butchered, the English. Above the love of the night among individual commanders of the Laotian army, some of the command staff of our beloved island nation have a firm belief in the exceptional cooperation of the fatherland. With the night, it is sometimes expressed in absolutely terrifying mutations of consciousness. Exactly. See what I mean? The legend goes like this: all movements only at night, personnel, equipment, moving the hand relative to the Johnson, also only at night. The reason is confidence in the safety of the time of day for actions. Why not in the greyness of the 5 to 6 o'clock, so that our cars could cool down from the engines during the day, and so drivers could at least somehow see the road, because then our ex-people won't see us. And these gentlemen are not at all embarrassed by the fact that our unloved radioactive people have heat lamps and drones with heat lamps, a bunch of night lights, and other gadgets that allow you to observe movements at night, see the thermal signatures of boxes resting after the march, and much more at night. Well, not everyone there are Mavics with heaters. Not everywhere. Sometimes instead of Mavics, there are matrices, and they still don't have a nightlight. So really unsure what's going on there. And further down the slope, in addition to this confidence, another attitude of the commanders is pushed forward, the unwillingness to listen or hear those below them. To the argument about the convenience of moving around in the grey, there is another argument. I thought, I know, at night without headlights, nobody will see us. And you can't argue no one will see from their own, and no one will, from the crew will see, nobody will see a damn thing. Nobody knows how to use night lights. And it's your problem that you didn't see the turn with the standard night vision system and drove in the wrong direction. They gave you maps from Yandex. So Yandex is the Russian equivalent of Google. There is a road there. And it's already your problem that you hear about it in your ear with excitement, the movement of enemy boxes along a route suspiciously similar to coordinates to yours. And it's your problem that you drove into a minefield and lost 2/3 of your crew on your minesweepers. We gave you a point, correct? Oh yeah, the point was behind the mines, damn it. Well, it's your headquarters problem that they didn't send you a map of the minefields, not ours. So this is a conversation going on. It's completely garbled. Can't really make much sense of it. But there are some bits that you can pick out from this, which is commanders not listening to those below them. Whether it's better to drive around in the night or at dusk, and then being given maps, and then the maps having the point that you want to get to that is behind minefields. So you end up driving through your minefields and losing 2/3 of your crew. So yeah, these things are happening. Right. We are hearing that about half, so quote here, about around half of all artillery shells used by Russia in Ukraine are from North Korean stock. So we'd already known about that. But then Russia is losing around 320 tank and artillery cannon barrels a month and producing only 20. Russia looks set to run out of cannon barrels sometime in 2025. That is from Foreign Policy magazine. Russia's war economy is hitting its limits. This is what I talk about quite a bit at the moment, which is I think Russia's somewhat on a precipice. Now, although Ukraine is as well, if we were to absolutely back Ukraine to the hilt right now, Ukraine could prevail somewhat militarily. If that included loads of missiles and attack drones as well. Just pile everything into Ukraine. But the problem is the election came along in the US, and now it's all looking pretty terrible. Like literally the single worst human being that could be put forward to the National Intelligence Directorate, like a pro-Russian. Like you should see there's even more Russian propagandists on Russian TV absolutely loving it. They're absolutely loving that Tulsi Gabbard has been put forward for the DNI. You start doing that and your government is compromised as far as Russia's concerned, and I can't see a way out for Ukraine through the US. It has to come from Europe, and I don't know if the US fully pulls out, and will that include support from intelligence like satellite imagery? What about all these other aspects of help? What about sanctions, like I keep mentioning? We're going to go and look at this in the other section, because there's some really strong indicators that the Russian economy is in serious trouble. So that's the kind of precipice I'm talking about. Running out of tank barrels, having to call on North Korea to get enough troops to. Okay, they are absolutely hammering away at every conceivable point of the front line, and Ukraine are on their knees. But I don't think Russia are particularly strong. I think they are doing literally everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at the front lines because they recognise this is a critical point. And if the US and allies were to stand with Ukraine as strongly as they possibly could, then that kitchen sink would bounce back. But at the moment, it's landing on Ukrainian heads and it is doing damage. What other things can we see here? Destroyed Russian counter-battery radar a 1L219 Zoo Park. So Zoo Park is a $10 million radar system, so losing that is going to hurt. There is actually another thing that was worth showing you. It is an Abrams. I should have it on here. I don't know why I don't, but we've got an Abrams tank being towed away, and I think this is the second one that the Russians have got their hands on, which is not good for the Ukrainians. Let's just come down to see, it's just down here. It's being towed away by the... There it is. Right, so the Russians are evacuating another captured M1A1 SA Ukraine Abrams tank to the rear. This one is visibly damaged. This is the same one indeed. Looking at the damage, it's the same one we saw. Yeah. Okay. So that's been added to that. That's interesting. So it is one that we already knew had been captured, but it's just seen from a different angle. Okay. Good news, that, because I thought that was another Abrams added to the list of captured Ukrainian tanks. Right. Now onto distance munitions and distance strikes. Sorry. The Ukrainian Air Force reports on a missile and drone attack overnight. So yet another one. This one's slightly smaller, actually. 29 drones and 2 missiles. One of the 2 missiles was taken down, and 25 out of the 29 drones appeared to have been intercepted. That leaves 4 that have got through. Damage to civilian infrastructure in Odessa. I don't know if that's on top of what happened yesterday evening. So this Odessa was hammered last night, and it was hammered by supposedly ballistic missiles and drones. So I don't know if that's included in this list, whether it was too early for this list, as in, yeah, it happened before I went to bed last night. 8:41 p.m. yesterday. Anyway, multiple explosions and hits in Odessa. Killer drones bombarded the city. The port area has been struck, and also the center. As you can see, a big fire at the time of one arrival. Questions will be asked about how so many got through air defense tonight. So big explosions there. Explosions all over Odessa now. The Russians are attacking the entire city with ballistic missiles and drones. Zero military objective, while Biden forbids us from striking Russian launchers and airfields. Ukrainians are expected to continue playing by US rules. So Jay and Kyiv is not happy there. But Odessa, he's absolutely right. It appears that there are little to no military objectives being hit there. That it's a case of either hitting civilian infrastructure or port infrastructure, which is how they export grain around the world. So it affects the world's food supplies, but also the Ukrainian ability to make money, have that incredibly important part of their economy functioning. Update from Odessa. Tim White says later, the main heating pipeline has been damaged in Russia's drone attack. One of the city's boiler houses stopped working, according to the city's mayor. Fires are burning in different locations. No word yet on casualties. So Odessa was absolutely hammered last night. And my opinion is that that's just overt war crimes. City centre burning last night. Just horrible, horrible stuff. They're not even pretending, the Russians. Now, on the other hand, Ukraine, and I said expect a large strike at any point soon. And in fact, there appears to have been a very large wave of drones attacking into Russia. But the Ukrainians have a tendency to go for, military targets. Tonight, drones targeted Russian military airfield at Krymsk, Krasnodar region of Russia. Russians claim that 50 to 60 drones were used. Results of the attack are as yet unknown. 330 kilometers from the front line is where this airport is. At night, the Russian military airfield Krymsk in the Krasnodar Krai was attacked by Ukrainian drones. Several hits were recorded during the attack. Unknown amount of damage, but 50, 60 drones hitting at one airbase is my idea of a much more sensible approach rather than spread them all out. I would massively overwhelm any given target and just throw everything you can at it to completely take out the target. Depends what the air defense is like, depends what electronic warfare is like. Okay, so I'm sure we'll find more information out as the day goes on, as it emerges online. In the meantime, let's go to other bits and pieces. So here we have Special Kherson Cat saying another hard day with large Russian attacks in the Kursk front. Current phase of the Russian waves of attacks has been ongoing since the 7th of November. So it's about just over a week of the Russians really hammering at the Ukrainians. Andrew Perpetua and his team talked quite a bit about what took place in Kursk, what is taking place, how it's going, what mistakes the Ukrainians made in attacking there, and one of the things they talked about was the mistake of waiting until after they had attacked into here before attacking up to Glushkovo. He said that they should have done that all at the same time, and there was mistakes made. And now although it's had a large amount of success as well, of course, but the Russians are just throwing everything at Kursk. When you got 50,000 troops and they're bringing up their very best unit from Zaporizhia now up to the area as well to work. So Ukrainians have their best units, but it's just hellish fighting there. Tim White here talks about how Russia has crossed Ukraine's border again, this time in the northern Chernihiv region near where it meets Sumy. So that'll be just along to the left from Kursk region. So the Russians attacking down into Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian officials point out it's a region cut off by rivers and destroyed bridges with no one living there. Even so, should Ukraine have defended the borders? I don't know. If it's not that useful, then it's kind of a waste of manpower to have there, maybe. I've been told that captured... We'll keep an eye on that, though. A Noel report said, I've been told that captured Russian soldiers from the 810th Brigade, so they are supposedly a crack brigade of Marines that are operating up in Kursk. They have been down in Krinky, where they've been pretty much mauled down there, so they've been reconstituted a bunch of times, and I explained this the other day, that now they've been force diluted so much that you'd be justified in doubting that they are indeed an elite force anymore. Anyway, they revealed that they've been instructed to only mention Buryat, so people from Buryatia, when asked about foreign fighters, avoiding any reference to North Koreans. So we know that North Koreans are being given Russian uniforms and apparently Russian ID as well, so that they can pretend to be from Buryatia. In Kursk, there is a camp only 25 kilometers away from Ukrainian positions occupied by North Koreans, and you'd wonder why Ukrainians hadn't taken that out yet, if that is the case. Maybe they're working on that. Russian soldiers are reportedly still looting their own houses. This is Glushkovo, where the Ukrainians didn't get to in the Kursk region. The way these people treat their fellow citizens is simply shocking. We've seen the ransacking of both commercial and residential properties by the Russian soldiers, their own country. It's just ridiculous. Right, preparations are underway for the construction of 2 power units based on the US company Westinghouse's AR-1000 technology in the southern Ukraine nuclear power plant, according to the plant's November 13th statement. So I've said previously that Ukraine's best chance, I think, of maintaining power throughout the country is to increase their nuclear power output, because Russia are unlikely to openly target nuclear power plants, because otherwise the West would surely would be a red line. Surely. I mean, you keep thinking there'll be red lines, but we apparently don't put red lines in place for Russia. But you think that'd be a red line. So they can ring fence, essentially, the nuclear power output in that way, as long as the distribution network isn't taken out. And I think we're seeing that with the Ukrainians increasing their nuclear output by bringing in an American company, Westinghouse, to help them build some extra nuclear power units. Okay, Kyiv is in talks with European authorities and airlines to resume flights, according to Reuters, something we talked about previously a number of times. Crispin Ellison, a senior partner at Marsh McLennan, stated that Lviv airport could reopen as early as 2025. That'd be interesting. Wonder which airlines would want to take the risk there. Now we're going to move on to the Russian economy. So Oliver Alexander says, rather amusingly, I haven't looked at the Russian economy in a few hours. I wonder how they're doing. Oh, they've raised the mortgage rate to 28.1%. Wow. So the mortgage rate, minimum rate in secondary housing market will be 28.1%, on the primary market 28.4%. Sberbank is raising rates on basic mortgage programs by 3.5% from November the 15th. In connection with an increase in the key rate and the growth of the cost of OFZ, the credit institution said in a statement. So that is not a good sign for the Russian economy. Let's look elsewhere. Today's collapse, says a Kiev Post, of the third largest property developer in Russia follows last week's collapse of the largest property developer in Russia, and it's only getting worse. There are now 53 million square meters of new unsold apartments across the country, and with October sales down as much as 82% in some regions, not yet reflected in the chart, things are about to get interesting. So it's not looking good for the Russian property market. You can see there that the mortgage rate is being rather prohibitive. And then GNQ says the second largest property developer in Russia continues to collapse. So we've got the first and the third have collapsed, and now the second is collapsing off another 5% today, about to drop through the floor. Putin's war is about to come home. And then we also see that the ruble is absolutely tanking. So the ruble is now worth just 1 US cent again, as Russia's currency continues a month-long slide, coupled with skyrocketing internal inflation. So inflation is massively high, interest rates are extortionate, the ruble is tanking, and the one good thing that the incoming US administration is likely to do in terms of the Ukraine war, in terms of Russia. So I do worry about sanctions, and I do worry about military assistance to Ukraine, and justifiably so, because listen to everything they've actually said with words, right? But something else Trump has said very clearly is one way he would deal with the Russia-Ukraine war is drill, baby, drill. Now, the US is already drilling record. I mean, it's not as if the US weren't already doing that, which I think was a bit of a distortion of reality. So the US has been producing more oil than any other country in the history of the world, right? So that's pretty incredible. But if Trump wants to bring down the price of oil, which he does, and wants to drill at capacity, at like full steam ahead, then that would bring down the price of oil. Flooding the market with extra oil would bring down inflation in the US more. I mean, it's what they'd already been doing to bring down inflation. But if there's spare capacity still to pump more oil out, then that could bring down global oil prices, which is one of the main ways you can affect Russia making money. So if global oil prices sink, then that's a bit of an issue. And there was something else today. It'll be in the geopolitics section, but I think is it a couple of countries are now getting oil not from Russia but from elsewhere, and that's really hurting Russia too. So we'll look at that a little bit later. But my opinion is that the war, in order for Ukraine to prevail in the war, Russia had to economically collapse. That's the best way you will get Russia to capitulate in a war. So sanctions need to be kept up, but actually oil prices down would be good. I mean, unfortunately, this is all not very good for the environment. But in terms of bringing this war to a satisfactory conclusion, Russia needs to be crippled. There's no good. I'm very worried because the rhetoric is still we're going to force a negotiation, we're going to force peace. If you do that now, if you'd come in and do that now, I mean, it would be interesting to see if Russia do further collapse in the next couple of months, because then actually you could force Russia to negotiate, but they've got an awful lot of land. So really you'd want Russia to collapse, Ukraine to use that as a way of being able to take back more land. We hear that there's units. So the Anne of Kiev unit being trained in France is 2,500 strong, but actually we hear it's 4,500 strong, potentially with all its support elements. So that if you bring sort of a big unit like that into play, and if they're well trained and well equipped, and then there are other units that might be getting trained up, then you could imagine a situation whereby Ukraine could militarily take some territory back, but it requires Russia to basically collapse. Like I've said previously, the only way Ukraine can militarily take back land is if Russia is giving it up, as in saying, right, we've not only culminated, but things are so bad back home that actually we're kind of receding, and then Ukraine can take back land, and that's when you would want negotiations. But you would argue, well, if they're in that situation, then you just carry on going. I mean, it needs Russia to collapse back at home for all the land to be taken back. So we shall see. Anyway, let me know what you think. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.